Today's episode was recorded at Speed Week 2023 at the beautiful but very wet Bonneville Salt Flats. I was fortunate enough to interview the legendary Dave Davidson, the man who's probably most well known for being the first person to go 300 miles per hour in a roadster. Now, while being the first to go 300 miles per hour in a highboy roadster is just incredible, there is so much more to Dave's story. I hope you enjoy the return of Land Speed Legends and this awesome interview.
Welcome to Land Speed Legends, a podcast talking to the men, the women, the legends that make land speed racing great. Discover the stories of these ordinary people whose passion for land speed racing has made them legendary. And now, here's your host, the Bonneville Belle, the Highboy Honey, the Salt Princess, Allison Volk-Dean.
Okay, so you started. You had an earlier career before Bonneville of racing.
Oh, yeah.
So what was that?
Long time. Well, most of it was drag racing. I grew up on a ranch in Northern California, so you could get your driver's license, when you were 13 and a half back in those days. And so living on a ranch, we always had ranch equipment, and we had an old ranch truck, and, so I was always tearing around in that. I've always the need for speed,
It's just in you.
Yeah, it was always that way. And my mom would never let me have a motorcycle. I know somebody in our family before, because I was an only child. And I had 3 brothers that died at birth.
Okay.
So I was the last one. And premature, 2 pounds, it was one of those deals,
Wow.
so my mom wouldn't let me have a motorcycle. So, and my friends, back in the early 50s, all had motorcycles, of some sort, either scooters or motorcycles. And we lived, I don't know, a couple miles from town, but it was about 3 miles, 4 miles from schools, And, I used to get home from school, and this is when I was like 10 or 11. And I'd get in the old ranch truck, and then we had a circular driveway, went around the house. And, my folks had a grocery store, so that they were always in town, So I'm racing around there and with my neighbor buddy. And, as time went, I got braver, until I got so brave that I hit a tree and then went right over the pump house.
Humbled you a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, I tell you, my dad, he was a big guy too. He was like 6'2", 220, and he had never ever hit me. My mom, now that's a different story. She's about 5 foot tall, and she was always switching me.
That's how it goes in our house.
Yeah, right. So she was out of town at that time, but he came down to the neighbors at 11 o'clock at night, and he was so mad, I think he was going to kill me. So anyway, that ended that. So then I I was always, a person that wanted to work on automotive stuff, So, and being on a ranch, I was always, my dad wasn't inclined to be a mechanic or anything. So, I was always fixing things and I was running around when I got into high school and then getting my license at 13 and a half, I could drive. I just couldn't drive at night unless I had somebody older, And my folks having a grocery store, they always had guys that were going to college or whatever, they were a lot older. So they would go out with me to go riding. So then I started drag racing their car or their truck. And
It progressed.
they had a 57 Ford pickup, and it had a 312 engine in it, which was pretty fast for that time and age.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it'd go 83 miles an hour and a quarter of a mile. And so I was, street racing,
Yeah.
They had drag races up in Northern California, but I couldn't take it to a drag race.
Mm-hmm.
My mom would know. so here I'm out there, and we're going into this street that kind of goes into town, but it was a mile from town, but it's straight away. And I see this car come out and turn on like a side street, and I tell the guy that I'm racing, I said, I think that might be a cop. Oh no, it's not a cop. So we take off. And, we're banging gears, and we're side by side. We go right by this highway patrolman. He's out there standing and watching us, So anyway, long story short, I kept going because I was ahead of him. And that was about 9:00 at night. And I dutched into an orange grove, and he got stopped, So, and he was an older guy, and they threatened if they were going to take him to jail if he didn't say who he was racing. So,
he had a rat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So they knew me. So 11:00 at night, they come out the ranch. It's a small town.
Yeah.
2,000 people. So everybody knew everybody. And so they came out there and said that, I was drag racing, and got me up out of bed. And my mom, she was ready to break my neck.
All 5 feet of her.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. She was a pistol. And so they didn't get me for running away from the cop, because I kind of fibbed. It said I didn't see the officer. I just took off and came home. So race was
Went
over.
right to bed.
Yeah, right. So they got me for drag racing, so I had to go to court, and the judge took it away for like 30 days, the license, and my mom took it for 6 months.
Mm.
So that was the end of that racing career. Then I started into high school and getting my own car, and then started going to.
So you weren't even in
sanctioned
high
racing.
school when you were drag racing like that?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So you go to high school and
Yeah. Well, I think I was a freshman. I might have been a freshman.
hey, in some parts of the place that's still junior high, so some parts of the world. That's pretty young.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But then I started drag racing my first car, and
like at a sanctioned event.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Up at Redding and Oroville and some of these other places, and doing pretty good. But I immediately blew the transmission and the rear end. It was constantly having those kind of issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally got I was going to buy a brand new car in 1960, and my folks were always Ford people, and Ford in 61 was coming out with a high performance engine in a car. And I told my mom, I want to buy one. She said, well, if you pay for half of it, we'll pay for the other half. I said, okay, fine. So I ordered it. It was going to be a midnight blue, 2-door sedan, no radio, no heater, just strictly with a 4-speed, had to have a 4-speed. And anyway, it finally came in after about 4 months.
Oh, wow.
And so I went down there, and it was still on the truck, and the salesman came over and says, well, we got a problem. And I could see on the badges on it that it was the right engine, but he said it came in with a 3-speed. I said, nope, I'm not buying it. I want my money back.
No way.
But I didn't find out until later in life that Ford back then you could order the car with a 4-speed, but it came in the trunk, and the dealer had to install it.
Oh.
And I didn't even know that. They didn't know that. So anyway.
So it was probably in the trunk then.
So yeah, probably is still. But so then I ended up going to buying a car. I'm still pretty young. I was, because I graduated from high school when I was 17. And so just about 18. But so the junior year of high school, because that's when I was buying this new Ford, I told my mom, I says, well, I'm going to look for a car. I'm not going to buy a new car. I'm just going to find a hot rod.
Yeah.
And I had a few hot rods that I worked on, some Model A's, and then sold them and, all that stuff. But they weren't fast at all. So this buddy of mine was from Southern California, going to school up there, and was looking in back then, the newspapers for like Sacramento and San Francisco. They always had a great big hot rod section, and you could look in there for cars, So I found one, and it was a 55 Chevy, and it had a B&M Hydro in it, which is an automatic, but it's a 4-speed, and you can actually shift it. It had it on the floor, and it sounded pretty good. So I took $1,200 and got on the bus, and my mom was scared to death. 17-year-old, she's thinking somebody's going to hit me on the head, and because I was always pretty small. I grew more out of high school.
Yeah.
And so, my buddy and I, we get in the bus, and then this guy picks us up at the bus station with his 55 Chevy, and it was fast. And, San Francisco's always kind of damp, the roads are damp, and he got on that thing and it went sideways. I said, I got to have this. So that kind of started my racing career.
Okay.
And drag racing.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was fast. It was a fast car. So I had the fastest car up there in Northern California. And I started going to college down in Southern California. And I lived with my grandmother. And she was, 82 or 83. And I lived with her for 3 years, and I know I shortened her life 5 years.
With all your drag racing.
Oh, yeah, the drag racing. And she was a staunch Seventh-day Adventist, So and I slept on a couch. She lived in a studio apartment with a bed that folded out of the wall. And I slept on the couch, but she was such a great person, But she loved going to church in the hot rod. And another friend of mine had a 34 Ford, and he'd take her when I couldn't,
Oh, sweet.
So anyway, I started that and got into actual driving a blown gas not a roadster, but a dragster, and with a partnership and stuff. And we were going to build a car for a backup car for a known guy for bracket racing. Like a I don't know can't remember what they called it, but where they would go to a drag race and people would pay to watch the
race. An expedition type race. Yeah.
Right. So we were going to be a backup car for him. And but I had gotten married by then. Shirley and I, my wife, still my wife.
Yeah. What year is this, just roughly?
That would have been let's see, I went down there right out of high school, so that was 61.
61.
And then we Shirley was a year in age different from me.
Mm-hmm.
In school, because she was born in South Dakota, so they didn't recognize her when she came out here for like kindergarten and all that. So they held her back a year. So she didn't graduate until 63.
Okay.
But when she got out of high school, then she came down and moved across the street from my grandmother because we had friends down there. And then, you know, I didn't really want to get married, but I didn't want to lose her.
Yeah.
Because we had, you know, we went to high off and on through, you know, like you do. I mean, I had a few girlfriends and she didn't have any, I didn't allow her any other boyfriends.
Hey, now, the court, that's why she wanted to marry you. She was done with that nonsense.
Well, anyway, so, you know, we were engaged for almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I didn't want to get married, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
So she came over to my grandmother's one morning early, and the friends that she was staying with, he was a federal mediator for the airlines, and she was pretty cute, and small, but she was going to be an airline stewardess, and you couldn't be married back then if you were a stewardess. So she came over and gave me her ring back. Says, "I'm leaving," and you know, Grant was his name. He says, "Grant's getting me an interview, and it's pretty much a shoe-in that I can get in with American Airlines." And I'm thinking, you know, I'm laying
Wait.
I'm laying there thinking, man, some pilot's going to snatch onto her, you know. So anyway, long story short here, because we're getting off track on racing.
Oh, that's all right. I love talking about short.
Anyway, so we, you know, I finally...
You get married. Did she put up with your racing? Was she okay with it?
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, she's always
should have married her right then and there.
Yeah, well, on this, the rest of the story on this was that he put her on a bus to come up to Northern California because their parents lived up here. And this was from Southern California. And so, you know, I was working for Stan Royal at the time, and I called a buddy of mine. I says, "Hey, can you cover my shift for Standard Oil?" And he said he would. So I jumped in the car. I called Greyhound to find out what the schedule was. And I drove up to Bakersfield, and I was waiting there when she got off the bus where they stopped.
Oh, my gosh. That's like a movie.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I pulled her off, and she says, "We're going to set the date." You know, so we went back up there, and then we got married like 3 months later.
Oh, that's a great story. I love it.
Yeah, and we've been married 59 years.
Oh, sweet.
So anyway,
sweet.
But you know, I've still wanted to race.
Yeah, you're still drag racing at this time.
Still drag racing. But then it just got too expensive. And then we didn't have any kids right away. I didn't want any kids. But I got right at at that time, Kennedy had passed the law, President Kennedy, that if you were married, and I got out for going to school, out of the draft I'm talking about. I got out of the draft and by going to school, but then I wasn't taking enough units to do that. Then I got married. And so that kept me out.
Oh, he had passed a law that if you were married, you didn't have to go.
Didn't have to go.
Drafted.
But then it got so bad in Vietnam that they were taking married guys. So, but nobody with dependents. So I actually got drafted, but we were drag racing, and I broke my foot 2 days before I was supposed to go in. And Shirley had gotten morning sickness. This is 3 years after we got married.
Yeah.
And I'm like 24 years
crazy.
old.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
You know,
like, I don't want to go to war.
Yeah, well, they were drafting people that were 18, 19, and here I'm 24. And I thought for sure, and, so Shirley started getting morning sickness. And, we weren't really trying. Maybe we were. I don't know.
She was, trust me.
Yeah, she probably was. Anyway, she starts getting sick. And I had this broken foot, and I actually got drafted, but then I went down, and 600 of us, and they had to get a bus to take me back because they would kick me around and said, "Oh, draft dodger," and all this. And I had the X-rays, and back then they actually put you in casts,
Uh-huh.
And so I got back, and then she really started, figuring she might be pregnant, So she went to see the what do you call
the OBGYN, the doctor. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Anyway, she went to see him, and she thought for sure that I was still going to be drafted because they told me
be so scary.
6-8 weeks, you'll be back here, So the doctor, he must have been against the war or something,
Uh-huh.
And because Shirley's in there, she's crying. Because she's
that'd be terrifying.
You're going to have a child, and you're supposed to be happy.
Yeah.
And the doctor couldn't believe. She says, "Well, my husband was getting drafted, and
oh yeah."
He says, "I'll take care of that." 2 weeks later, I got a notice that I was 3A instead of being 1A.
Nice. Yeah.
And, because I was going to have a dependent, then I was out of
that changed things.
So I didn't get drafted.
Nice.
So then getting into
so now you can go back racing some more.
So then getting into the racing end of it, knowing that I'm going to have a child, I just couldn't. If we wouldn't have been married, and if we wouldn't have any child, I probably wouldn't still be married, because I probably would have taken racing as a career.
Uh-huh.
Because I was good at it. But it was just a budget thing. Couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
We were always getting hand-me-downs from Chet Herbert and some of the other top, fuel guys, dragster guys, and their used tires and stuff like that. But, to compete and make a living at it, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I got out of drag racing because it got too expensive. And so then I started riding motorcycles. Because I'm away from my mom.
I was going to say, what did your mom say about that?
Yeah, right. Yeah, she was still alive at that. They were in their 40s when I was born. So they back in the early 40s, somebody in their 40s, having children, it
was rare.
It was. So anyway, I started riding bikes, and then I started riding. With a group of guys, and we started riding what they call enduros. And they're kind of a timed event. You can, get maybe 5 in a line, and you'd go out and you'd go to different checkpoints, and you try to hit those checkpoints.
Okay, that sounds like fun.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. But 5 friends were always racing to the checkpoint, so we got to the point that the enduros weren't any fun. So then we decided to actually go desert racing. And I know, in fact, Fred, I didn't know him at that time. Fred Dannenfelter was racing in what they call District 37 at the time that I was out there. And, you start out as a novice, and then you work up. But, I'd been riding for probably 3 or 4 years prior to that. So I really wasn't a novice, even though I started that. So I went from novice to expert in about 6 months. And then I rode what they call District 37 for out in the desert. And there would be some races, there could be a couple thousand riders,
Wow.
And I had a Yamaha ride in 73 that I got sponsored from Yamaha motorcycles.
Yeah.
And then I broke my foot again. So I lost that.
Oh, shoot.
Because it was, I couldn't ride, with a broken foot. And so then I started. I got in business for myself. So then I had to stop all the fun stuff. I had to work. Had to work all the time.
You had to grow up, huh?
Yeah, right. Well, that's one comment my wife's always made to people. Dave's never grown up, but he got responsible.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's the best of both worlds.
Yeah. So, well, I had a family to feed, and our son came around in '67, and then our daughter came in '70. So,
okay,
my wife wanted 4 kids, and I didn't want any. But one kept me out of losing my life problem. So after she had Sean, our oldest, then she says, well, maybe 3. Then we had Kelly, my daughter, and she's a perfect daughter. She said, no more. After Kelly.
That's what I said after my second. I'm done.
yeah. But you have 3, though.
No, I have 2.
Oh, just 2.
Yeah, 2 boys, yeah.
Okay. Well, we were lucky to have a boy and a girl.
Yeah, that's great.
They've been great kids, and they're always your kids. They're in their 50s, but they're still our kids. And so anyway, my daughter, to get her way, she would hold her breath and pass out. This is a true story.
I've heard of kids doing this.
Yeah, and we had to throw water on her to get her going. So anyway, I got kind of into decided to start racing for money, motorcycles.
Yeah.
So friends of mine and we started racing down in Mexico. And, I had my business that actually performed, for a couple of years and never took a day off. 7 days a week, I had this business. And
what's the business?
Well, it was a Chevron station.
Okay.
Okay. Because I was a marketing rep for Standard Oil.
Okay.
And then when I quit Standard Oil, I got my own station. And so anyway, after a couple of years, then I wanted to ride again, So then I thought, well, we'll start riding Mexico. Then I had a really close friend of mine get killed in the desert, racing. That we used to come in and we'd have coffee.
Oh, that's too bad.
Stuff. Yeah, it was just, that happens.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I started racing in Mexico and doing pretty good. We were racing with factory teams and stuff. Well, we weren't a factory team, but I finally got to be on a factory team.
Yeah.
And I did pretty well, won the 1,000 a couple of times, and in the class, not overall, but close to overall. And the first year they had age groups, for, I don't know if you know any like Larry Rossler or any of those guys. They're all top riders, and they've gotten into cars.
Okay,
so they're really good. They were younger, but so then they had an age group that was over 30. All the riders on your team had to be over 30.
Okay,
and they had an over 40. Well, the first year they had over 30. They were. It was the biggest class. There were a lot of guys in that age group.
Yeah.
And one of our guys, I was over 40, and one of my other riders was over 40, but we were good.
Yeah.
We weren't slouches at all. Good shape and could ride hard. So anyway, we ended up winning the first Class 30 championship.
So cool.
And I got more money, because it was the money goes in from when your entry fees.
Yeah.
So, and the entry fees back then, today they're $2,000 or $3,000. Like ours have gone up,
Yeah.
Well, it's back then they were like $250, but half of it went into a writer's fund for the end of the championship. Anyway, so when I won that class championship, I still remember the first year that the Wide World of Sports televised, they show us coming in,
Oh, okay.
and all that,
It was getting big.
get to interview you, so all that. But so then I started, I raced Baja probably for about another 2 or 3 years, and then we had a factory ride, and then my son started racing. He raced for Kawasaki. He had a sponsored ride with Kawasaki motorcycles, and so then he started with mini bikes, and then went on up. But that was all through. I wouldn't let him race until he was about 13, and because he was a small guy, and I was always worried about him breaking something, Anyway, so he raced all through high school, and I quit riding, because I was his mechanic, all that stuff.
So he had gotten good too.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's still real good.
Oh, cool.
But he quit because he wanted to go to college, but the only reason he wanted to go to college was the fun part. Yeah. So he got kind of out of motorcycles.
Okay.
So now we get into the land speed stuff.
Oh, so this is where. So you just kind of stopped with the motorcycle racing. I had no clue that you were this into motorcycles.
Yeah. I'd ride, but I didn't.
But you're just kind of.
Yeah, just periodically I'd maybe do a Grand Prix or something that I felt that I could, be competitive at. So because I'm a competitive person.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So what year did you first come out to Bonneville?
Well, that was
or any land speed racing event.
Well, how I got started in land speed racing. Okay, back in the early '60s, I think it was '63. Mickey Thompson, he was pretty big into this. Okay. Well, I met a guy, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come out and be a crew member, to Bonneville?" And being a kid, you always read about Bonneville, back in those days. And so I, that'd be great. And I says, "When is it?" They told me it's in August. I said, "Okay, what's the dates?" And I can't get off that long.
Yeah,
because they wanted me to come for like 10 days, and I couldn't get off work for that. So that didn't do that. So how I got into the land speed racing was a friend of mine called me on Butch Carlson. Did you ever know Butch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Butch Carlson had the 511 Roadster. Okay. That he and he's passed away. Well, both of them passed away, but anyway, whoever's driving for him. And Butch he was building a model. Well, he bought Freddie Dannenfelter's modified, front engine modified.
Yeah.
So he wanted to sell this Roadster, and a friend of mine called me and says, "Hey, I got a friend. He's got a 29." I was in the street cars. So he's got a 29 Model A Roadster with a blown small block Chevy with a 4-speed with a quick change rear end. Wants to sell it for $7,500. I said, "I'll buy it." And I'm thinking of a street roadster, kind of like what your dad had,
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking. But I was we lived in Mammoth Lakes at that time. We lived there for 30 years. And this was down in Southern California. So I said, "I'll come down and take a look at it." So I come down, I look at it. Well, this isn't a street roadster.
This is a race car.
Yeah, what is this? And so that's what Butch kind of got me going with this, with that 511. But it didn't come with the engine, but all the stuff. And actually, Dana Wilson was looking at the car at the same time to buy.
Yeah.
And, I got it for $7,500, and so that's what started my career in
kind of accidentally almost.
Yeah, it was. But I'd always wanted to come to Bonneville.
It was like fate was meeting you.
Well, yeah, it just, time flies, you know, so you do other things and got a family, you got, So
yeah. So what year was this that you bought this?
That was in 1990.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I go to El Mirage, and I says, well, what do you do to race this thing? So then, I didn't have an engine. Well, I had an engine. He says, well, you got to meet John Beck. That's who does my engines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's how I got tied in with John.
Okay.
So I got tied in with John, and then we put an engine in the car, and we go out to El Mirage. And have you ever been to El Mirage?
I've never been to El Mirage.
Okay. Well, it's a very challenging form of land speed racing.
Yes.
It was harder for me than this was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Even though this was hard too. So anyway, on my first pass down there, and I told John, I says, I've been really fast because down in Mexico racing those bikes, everything was geared for 100 plus.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're on dirt and you're going on natural terrain. So, I was used to going fast in my years earlier for drag racing. So anyway, John was trying to reel me in.
That's so funny.
Because he was in business, to build engines.
Yeah.
Well, you got to start out slow and, even though he didn't know anything about other than just building engines for Butch, So anyway, we went out there and, then you got a license, My first pass was too fast. I went like 150, 155 or something like that. And it felt like I was driving down the freeway.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like going down 80. I mean, it was smooth, I mean,
nice,
it was just,
yeah.
I'm not racing anybody else, So then I had to come back and then make a slower pass. But anyway, so I went back to John. I says, this isn't going to cut it. I got to have faster engines. So then we started building faster engines.
Mm-hmm.
And
in that first one, did you do any records in that or no?
No records.
Okay.
And then El Mirage at that time, to get a good starting position, you had to drop your car down there on the lake bed on a Wednesday before and line it up. Just leave it there. People would leave their vehicles out there. I had a truck that I could carry it in, like a trailer.
Uh-huh.
And so it was an old tow truck, and I had a stinger off the back that I could take a car down there with me. So anyway, we did that for the first year, and then I wanted to go to Bonneville. So I came out to Bonneville, and I'd gone. I think I went 180 or 185, 185 down there at El Mirage with that 911 that first year, and I started building up my license, and I had a better engine in it. So we came to Bonneville, and I just came right over to the long course. Nobody ever told me that you had to go a certain speed.
You had to license up, huh?
Yeah, to license up on it. And, I think somebody says, well, they knew who I was just from El Mirage.
They figured you had it.
They figured I'd already been there. And I hadn't. So my first pass down at Bonneville, which on the long course, I just about get to the tree, and I felt a kind of a funny vibration. Then all of a sudden, I see a fireball go by. I kicked the rods out.
Oh, shoot.
Right before the three. And so that was my first trip.
You're like, this isn't fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I've done a few of those, but so anyway, I raced that car. And then when I I finally, we started doing pretty good, and we were always fighting Wilson Waters.
That's who you were going back and forth with.
Oh, yeah. And Dana and I became pretty good friends.
Yeah.
Mike and I, we were friends, but Mike was serious.
Oh.
I don't know how well you knew.
I know both of them pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I loved both of them.
Yeah.
Dana, we became
You just connected with.
Really close friends. And he says, Dave, you're just tenacious. Yeah. Because I would get close to the record, then they'd bump it up.
Uh-huh.
They were,
you were chasing that.
Oh, yeah. And I always idolized Greg as being such a good driver. And he still is.
Yeah.
But he was perfect, so I try to copy that to some degree. It's probably not the right word, but anyway, we were running D Fuel, and I was going on Charlie Markley's record, which had been an old D Fuel record. It was like 220 something, and I think we went like the year before we went 219. And Charlie came over. He says, "Man, you guys got to keep going. You'll get it." Charlie.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. Yeah. And so we came back the next year, and we didn't have a push truck. We rented a car. I don't know what the deal. I can't really remember, but we had a pickup, but no push bar. And so we go down on the first pass and went 220. Oh, I went 223 or 224, and so we qualified.
Okay, so you got it. You got it.
But the engine was really, really bad.
Oh.
And so we go to impound, and this was back. Well, I know that we were the ones that caused the 4-hour rule.
That's what I heard. Donnie was telling me that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't know if you knew that.
Yeah. So what happened? Why?
Well, we're in there, and I'm telling John, I said, this isn't going to work, because the heads were they'd gotten so hot that it just melted. So John's taking gasket material and making a shim in there that would cover up the hole. And I said, John, it's never going to work. He says, if that engine starts, it's not going to know it's hurt, So,
yeah.
And he's an engine builder. He knows, So anyway, Gordon Hoyt was the guy. He was pissed because we're over there, they kicked us out at 8:00.
Oh, wow. So you're there all day.
Yeah, all day from about 10 o'clock in the morning all the way putting this car together. And I'd taken all the weight out of the car because I wanted to give every opportunity that I could to get a red hat. And so anyway, it fired up. We had 4 cylinders. We had 4 cylinders that had almost zero compression. And, we're up on the line, and I can't remember the fellow that pushed us off, but we were the last car coming out of impound. And John's trying to start it. And I don't remember if you ever saw the highlight reel at one time, nothing to do with SCTA, but it was about fires. And John caught on fire because it kept backfiring. And, the bottle would catch on fire. His arm would catch on fire. And so they finally told us, you guys are going to have to forget it. And we finally got it started. So I take off. And, no weight. I mean, I took 1,000 pounds out of the car. And it was a drive. I mean, I was way off course. And, and I could see I had to go to the 4-mile mark. And man, that thing was just zinging because it's a little D engine.
Yeah.
And I got through, I'm going towards the highway, actually, to get through the 4-mile mark.
Oh, wow.
At an angle,
Oh, my God.
And anyway, I lost the engine, but I made it through. So
Did you get the hat?
so
You got the
yeah,
record?
I went 232.
Oh my gosh, that's such a cool two
I
club
went
story, like getting in the club.
8 miles an hour, and set the record at 228 and some change, and it stood for quite a few years.
And rules were changed afterwards. That means you were pushing the limits.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it changed on the impound procedure. They went to. I'm sure Gordon had a lot to do about that, because he was complaining. You guys, when I got in the club, you had to go 3 times, and all this stuff. Here you are, you're working on, you're rebuilding the whole engine, which we weren't.
What? There's no rule against it. I mean, but there was nothing against it at the time, so why not?
No,
you could do it.
So anyway, that we raced that car for quite a few years, and then I met Lester.
Okay.
Liggett, and so I Lester wanted to at time before he started building the actual 911 cars. It wasn't the 911 then; it was I think the 500 or something. But it was at the stage that when I bought it from him. But anyway, so he wanted to put the engine in that 811 car, that was our number, 811. And I told him, I said, there's no way I can't put that thing's 110-inch wheelbase. It's a little 29 Ford. It was bending the frame rails with that Chevrolet in there. Because we started racing with that 811 with Chet Herbert. Gave us an engine that he was producing, some heads that he was trying to market, and he was a real close friend of John. And he says, "Hey, take this and see what you can do." So, after the Bonneville, and what we had wasn't going to make it for El Mirage, and I think Wilson Waters had bumped we went to Sea Fuel, and their Sea Fuel record, I forget what it was, like 220 or something, and then we went to almost 229 down there with Chet Herbert in, and we kept that for a long time, and then it finally, then Robinson came along, and we put a pricer on fuel, and that was the end of that. So, but then we brought it to Bonneville, and we went like 245, and Wilson Waters was like 247. They were always
just one step ahead of you.
Yeah, but I always had I had already had the red hat, and then I got the El Mirage hat after Bonneville.
Oh, you got in the El Mirage after that. Okay.
Yeah, right. And that was hard.
I've heard that those El Mirage.
It's a drag race, so everything's kind of have to go right. I'm amazed that guys go over 300.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But so anyway, I told Liggett, no, that wouldn't work. And so he says, well, I'm going to build a car. I said, okay. But he said he wanted me to drive because I had a lot of experience in a roadster. And, I've never spun at that time or anything. And so I said, well, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I was coming down from Mammoth when he was starting to build this car. And then I could see, it wasn't being built for me, not the way I like to sit back at about 30%. Not straight up and down, kind of just get the feel of the car, So anyway, so I kind of bowed out of it because, at that time, Larry was still alive, and Liggett's driver, they were driving the Firebird, and doing real well with it.
Yeah.
And he's building this car, and then he gets to about 50% of the car done. And he calls me. He said, Dave, he says, I'm not a car builder. I'm an engine builder. I want to sell the car. And I had already talked to Donnie and John when he wanted me to drive the car, how do you guys feel about it? Because I feel real close to people that are around me,
Yeah.
and I want everybody's blessing, so to speak,
And you still had the 811 at this time, right?
Yeah, we had the 811, and then I'd already reeled John in.
Oh, yeah.
Because John had gotten the car, that's another story, but maybe someday you'll do something with John.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. But, because, he's a great at doing this.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're doing great. You're doing awesome. No. Yeah, you're just telling your story. I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, and they were all in for it, too, because I said, this is my chance to get a blue hat, because Liggett makes horsepower.
Yeah.
So.
But not only a blue hat and a roadster.
Yeah, and a roadster. Be the first.
Yeah.
And Robinson was, knocking on the door.
Yeah.
So somebody's going to be
the first.
It's going to be the first. But they can only have number one.
Yeah,
number
that's
one.
Right. That's right.
And so anyway, so Liggett told me, he says, here's what I want for the car. Here's what's coming with the car. I'll supply the engine and the clutch, and you pay for the entry and the fuel. Or no, was it fuel? Yeah, the fuel and the oil, and I'll take care of the engine. I said, okay. So that was cheaper than, me doing all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, we got the car, and I had to change it. I had to cut the roll cage out of it, and the steering was way wrong. And, there was just a lot of stuff that was not right. And, of course, Lester wanted to be the spearhead and telling me how to build this car. But, he finally agreed that, you do it the way you want. It's your car. So I did, and then he didn't like the color at first, because I told him what colors I was doing, and oh no, you can't do that. It needs to be all black. And I said, no, I think two colors makes it look better. Then he was real happy with it. So anyway, we get his engine and everything out here. We come out here, and he had that big NASCAR haul. Well, he wouldn't bring it out on the salt. So I had bought a trailer that I could, because the car is 6,200 pounds. It's heavy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right. It's like two cars.
Yeah.
So we get in the, Lester has it at the truck stop, and then we pick it up and we come in here. And of course, it's a brand new car. So we got to go on the short course. So we had, at that time, they had 4 courses. So this was about 2008.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, we went over and looked at the short course, and then we looked at what we call we used to call it the special ed course. It's kind of the beginners.
Yeah.
But it was still a 3-mile course.
I remember, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we go over there, and Lester's, of course, the way Lester is, he tells you how to drive. And he had kind of an antiquated fuel system. He had 2 fuel pumps and 2 barrel valves. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, you probably do.
I do.
Yeah. But anyway, so, to fire up the car, he would, I had to turn the 1 fuel pump on. Okay. And then fire it up, and then we get ready to run. And then once you step into it, then you turn the other fuel pump on.
Huh.
So, and I'd never been in the car, and they didn't really question what speed that I was going to go, So I And Lester says, you'll never be able to drive, full throttle on this thing at all. Well, that course that was the best course I'd ever been in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going down there and I just step into it. And then all of a sudden I get oiled down big time.
Oh, yeah.
So bad you couldn't see anything. And, I'm kind of watching the cones, and finally, I want to make sure, because I was in a bad fire one time up here on the 811 car.
Oh.
And I didn't, the oil was up high, so I wasn't really concerned about it being down where the headers with a Chrysler, they're real low, So we bring it back, and I went like 280.
Wow.
Yeah, on that course. And
wow.
Of course.
On the special ed course?
On the special ed. And I forget who it was. I think it was, he's one of the head starters now. He was tickled to death. I know him. I just death on name.
That's right. Was it Nick?
Nick was over there, and he was tickled to death.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause we were going faster than anybody on the short courses,
Yeah.
So we bring it back. We go into the impound with it because we were on a modified roadster record, and for that roadster, all I got to do is I had to put a piece of metal under the front pan area to make it modified and be legal.
Yeah.
To be legal modified. And so we go into impound, and Lester's checking it all out, and oil's every place. I mean, it's unbelievable. I didn't have any problem with anything rusting, that's for sure. So he said, well, I can't fix it in impound.
Oh.
It's just a force. So we haul it out to the truck out there, and he works on it with his crew, Bradshaw and other people. We weren't allowed to touch anything.
Okay.
Yeah, on anything. It's the way Lester is.
Yeah.
He's pretty protective on, what he does, which is okay.
Yeah, it's fair.
He didn't have any problem with that. It just felt like John and Donnie felt like they were redheaded stepchild or something, So the next day, he says, I got it fixed. So we go back out there on the special ed, go down there, same thing, get oiled down again, So anyway, that was, trying to think, that was probably, that was during Speed Week. So he says, well, I'm going to have to take it home. And he told me what the problem was, but it was building up too much pram pressure, and it was pushing out the gasket between the intake manifold and the block, So he takes it home. So then we come back for the World Finals in 2009, and I go out and I popped the blower. I broke a blower belt. We're still on the, well, back it up, going on. We were on the long course now, but at the time that we were on the short course over there, SCTA officials came over, and I don't think Latin was the president there. I forget who. It might have been his dad, or I'm not sure who it was. But anyway, they came over and says, hey, Dave, you need to be over on the long course, And, I told them, I said, I like this course because we were planning to only go 3 miles because of the fuel, consumption.
Yeah.
So, so you don't understand. When you run over there, we shut down everything because they didn't have any safety equipment over there. So, okay, well, that's a good idea. So we came over, and then I popped the blower belt, and Lester didn't have another belt, so that ended.
2009 was a wash.
See, I think we went down to El Mirage, and then we probably set some, records in the 240 range or something. Anyway, because I was just learning how to drive the car, and then when we were here on the long course, I had a vibration, and I just thought it was the nature I've never been that fast before, you know, so I just figured that's the way the cars are, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so we came back. See, I'm trying to think. Somehow we came back maybe the next year, and because may have been the same year. I don't remember, but we came back with Lester still.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to push off to the mile marker because he
Oh, yeah.
he even figured we're going to gain a mile, and then we'd go to the 4, but we'd be going 100 miles an hour by the time we got going.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're still out there in the course. So John pushes me off, and I had asked Lester. I says, "Well, where do you want me to turn on the second pump? You know, because I'm just idling, you know, and the thing idles at 2,500 RPM. So idling going down the course." He said, "Well, you can turn it on any time." So I'm seeing the mile marker, and John's just all over the place. I had a Duramax truck, and he's going 100.
Yeah.
Hard trying to stay with me. And so I see the mile marker come on. So I took and put on that second pump. And then I stood on it at the mile marker, and I went, I probably went from here to the 150 yards or so, and all of a sudden I get a pop. And I thought, I broke a bowler belt again, so I had pulled over to the pits, and I did turn to the right, I turned to the left, and I kicked a rod, and I didn't know it, so I remember Mike Cook came over. He was all pissed off because he cut a tire on the next run.
Oh, shoot.
But he didn't go flat, I thought it went flat. I said, "Mike," and he'd set a record, and I said, qualified.
Sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, and he's yelling at me. Lester's yelling at me. And he says, "You hydraulic the engine." I said, "I didn't hydraulic the engine. No way. That thing was on 16 cylinders. It was cranked,
Yeah.
And oh yeah, you hydraulic the engine." So he loaded up the car, and I had the 811 here at the same time. So we went out to race the 811, and Wilson Waters' record on the 811 was 257. And on the down run, I went 265.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we came back in the impound, and we didn't back it up because we had some problems. But anyway, so that was the last time that car had ever been ridden.
The 811.
Yeah, 811 under the C fuel.
Yeah.
Because, Robinson was going 280 something, and Fogey was spinning, so he could never back it up. So, the record stood. So I wanted to get to the car, and I'd made a decision after all this with Lester, because Lester said, you're going to be responsible for this.
Yeah.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I'd made the decision with John. I says, "Hey, what do you think of us having our own engine?"
Yeah.
He says, "Yeah, we can do it. It's going to be expensive." I said, "How expensive?" I said, "Well, I'm going to try to find a used engine."
Yeah. How expensive? Well,
yeah, right.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, Strasburg's great people.
Yes.
And I've always promoted them with their rear ends and their transmissions, because I've always ran a B&J transmission before they even had B&J. They're a great family.
Oh, yeah.
And they've always been really good to me. So I'd called Mike. I says, because he was running Top Fuel quite a bit, on the NHRA.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
At that time.
And so I says, "Hey, if you ever run across an engine, let me know, because I'd be interested in one." So the next week he called me. He says, "Hey, one of my crew members actually, I forget the guy's name. He's still with him, and he does the clutches, I think, and stuff for him. Well, he was a good-looking guy, and he was tied in with some girl, and it was a partnership on a funny car. And I don't know, one of them got caught someplace they shouldn't have been.
Needless to say, they were separating from the decoupling.
The partnership, he owned the car and she owned the engine. So it was like a fire sale. And Mike told me, he says, hey, if you can get over here. I said, well, I'm going to Colorado elk hunting. And this was in November, first part of November. I says, I'll buy it. It was like $20,000 for the complete. I mean, all kinds of extra parts. I mean, everything. And, which was a heck of a deal.
Yeah.
But it was a good 4-second engine. It's not a minute engine.
Yeah. It's a drag engine. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, anyway, I picked it up and it was still in the funny car. And the guy says, well, we can take it down to the airport. You can drive it if you want. And I said, no, I'll just get it out of there and I'll take it home. And here's the money. And so that's how it started with our own engine program. And then, but I had to get the car back. Lester had the car. So I told Donnie, I said, right after the first year, I said, I want to get up to Lester's and pick up the car. But I'd brought down my enclosed trailer and, to pick it up. And I got it loaded and Brandon was there and Lester was there and Donnie and I. And Lester said, well, what are we going to do about this next year? Anyway, so I said, well, Lester, I've decided to do my own thing. He says, well, what do you mean? I says, well, I can't drive the car. And he says, what do you mean you can't drive the car? You just screwed up one time. I can't drive the car with your tune-up. Oh, shit. I could see the fire coming out. Oh, man. If he was probably 15 years younger, he probably would have taken a swing at me. I surprised Brandon, but he's a pretty mellow guy, too.
Yeah.
But, they were all pissed. Everybody was pissed.
Oh, shoot.
So then I get the car back and we got that engine. John goes through it. We came out here to Speed Week and I can't remember, we were close to the record, whatever we were running, like an A engine. It's like 280, so. But I had this vibration. I still had the
same vibration
in the car. So I said, I want to take the car back, and and we were running at that time. I was running a transmission that Lester. Well, it wasn't the B&J at that time, and it was a 9-inch Ford Lester had started with, and so. We pulled everything apart. We found a few things because we run an intermediate shaft, so it's not a drive shaft. It's we don't use U joints or anything like a normal car. It's where they couple. It's a coupler, and so we checked all that stuff. Yeah, I can't find anything wrong. We had. Rob Moore build another intermediate shaft just to be sure that that thing wasn't bent or something, and nope, it's perfect. And so we come back up here in the World Final.
Yeah, 2010.
2010.
I remember because I wasn't there.
Yeah. Oh. Well, anyway, so we come out and I make a pass and I'm over the record, but I got this stupid vibration. And luckily for me that we had cut a tire on one wheel. And, but I had another set of tires and wheels. And so we didn't go to impound, even though I was over that record. I said, no, I want to go 300, and I think I can do it. This car would, it had enough horsepower and everything to do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I came back. We changed the set of wheels. I came back and we went 296 or something on that.
Yeah.
On the down pass. And so then we went into impound. Everything was perfect. No vibration. So it was in that tire wheel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no vibration. It's just smooth as glass. But we found out that the gear ratio that we had wasn't high enough. So when I went 296, I only picked up 2 miles an hour from the quarter to the 3. Because I just
it kind of just flattened out. It
kind of slowed down. So we thought, well, I told John, I said, let's put some more nitro in it. Got to go 300.
It's always a good answer.
Yeah, right. So that's one nice thing about running nitro. You just feel like you have enough power, you can make more power.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So then we went and put some more nitro in it, and I went 304 or something, which set the record at 301.
Ooh, that's so awesome. I remember I was in Hawaii at the time. I missed the world finals because I went to Hawaii, and it was
well, that was fun.
Yeah, it was fun, but I was like, I heard it. We were watching. I was like, oh my gosh, I missed that.
Oh yeah, well it was like the shot around the world. I mean, to me, it was what I tried to achieve.
Yeah,
and I was really humble about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had people, Altig calling me. I had so many people calling me about it. And, and I was very thankful and appreciative.
Yeah. It is a great accomplishment.
So we've had a lot of fun with that car. We've been over 300 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
And the other records aren't up where they should be, but they're close to that, 298 or 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
they're not 300.
Yeah. You always have some kind of little issue or something. It's just, you've been around it so long.
Oh yeah.
You know what it's all about. But anyway, that's
awesome. That was amazing. That probably felt really good though. And you got that blue hat. And...
Yeah. So, and we try to get, we ended up building a car, which was the 511 for Donnie and for John to get in the 2 Club. We built that car in 30 days.
Oh, wow.
From nothing.
Wow. And they both got in the club in that car then. Yeah.
Both in the El Mirage Club and the
Bonneville Club. That's so cool.
And then Chet Thomas ended up buying that car.
Oh, yeah.
Because there wasn't any reason for me to have 3 cars.
Yeah.
Should only have one, according to my wife. But she's never ever complained because I've always been fortunate enough that I never,
she didn't have to sacrifice much on her end.
She's always been a home housewife. She's never. I mean, that's work in its own.
Oh yeah, so that's what I do. So no,
But,
I know how it is.
Yeah, right. So, but nowadays it's hard because most families have to have.
Yeah, have to have 2 working. It is hard. I'm fortunate that I get to stay home.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yep.
Well, I think it's so much better. And I'm not a politician or get involved in politics, but our whole country is so screwed up because of the way families aren't being properly.
That's really where it started, huh?
It gets started there, and then the schools. That's another thing. So, Anyway, so anyway, the 911 is, because of the 911 history,
Yeah.
with that number, it's gotten a lot of publicity.
Yeah.
I'm 80, so, or I'll be 80 in a couple of weeks.
Uh-huh.
So, I really enjoy the motorcycle racing.
Yeah.
And I
That's
do
so
that.
cool.
I do that.
You still do that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And are you still driving too? Are you still?
Yeah. I plan to drive El Mirage. And then I told Donnie, when we got the car all back together and we were going to enter it for Speed Week, I says, I'm not coming out till Monday, but I want you to drive the car.
Oh, cool.
And, actually, I had thought about that all along. And he's gone fast in that car. He's gone like 270 something out here with it.
Mm.
And, he probably has, all of us, just jumping into something, he's going to have to learn, but he's so confident and he's so good at what he does that he's not going to have any problem.
Yeah, he's gonna. So you're gonna put him in the 911. Try to go 300.
300.
So that's so awesome. I love that.
Yeah, he was scheduled to drive
this week.
This week on Monday. We were going to get here Sunday night and then go to Tech on Monday morning, and then then go right to the starting line, because we can go on the 3 line, so we could go around.
So maybe September. Do you guys come to the September meet?
Yeah, I've already. Donnie already told him we will be here in September.
Cool.
But the course has got to be good.
Oh, for sure.
And I really trust your dad.
Yeah.
I don't trust a lot of, and I love everybody in the SCT. Don't get me wrong here, but they're real optimistic that everything's going to be perfect and the courses are perfect. And, I'm in contact with, because, to drive a car like that with a short wheelbase and not much horsepower, you got to have a good course.
Yeah, you want a good course. And exactly.
Yeah, but what I told Donnie, you can't go more than 3. You got to do it in the 3 miles, because I want to drive it to the 4.
You get the last say.
Yeah, right. That's right.
I love it. That's so awesome that you're going to let Donnie drive. Is there anything else that you have planned for the future? Or is that kind of where you're at?
I think it is for, I want to drive, I went to almost 278 down there at El Mirage, that car. And, no roadsters ever, Wilson, or not Wilson Waters, but Robinson's been like 253 or something like that.
At El Mirage.
El Mirage.
So you want to try that?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, I went 278.
That's fast.
Yeah. And I mean, that was fast. When I made that run, I came back. In fact, Ferguson's, we were always going back and forth for the hot rod trophy for El Mirage at the end of the year. And I got it for a couple times, but when the streamliner, you're going against streamliners, you don't have a chance in a roadster.
Yeah.
Back, 7, 10, 8 years ago, there weren't too many guys that were building streamliners that were going those kind of speeds other than Ferguson.
Yeah.
So Ferguson went like 270, and Donnie said, "Oh, you know how Donnie is, gets real worried."
Yes.
And I'm not talking out of turn. You know him as well as I do.
Yes.
Okay. So, and he says, "Oh man," he says, "I don't think we can. That's fast." I said, "Yeah, it is fast, but so I go down there and I go almost 278."
Yeah.
And then Ferguson packed up and went home.
So did you get the hot rod trophy for down there?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Got that for.
In a roadster. Even better.
Oh, yeah. And I told Donnie back then, I said, I think I can go 300 down there. I really still, to this day, think I could.
I love it.
Yeah. Because when I went that 278 on the computer, I was only half throttle. But the problem was that everything's got to be perfect. You got to drive perfect. You got to come off the truck perfect. And I was always concerned about stopping because you only have a mile to stop and you're on dirt. So anyway, I was kind of worried about that, but I got stopped. You know, I did kind of go a little bit, you know, coming when I was making the turn, coming around, that I kind of went a little bit out of bounds, and they didn't. Nowadays they're really strict about it, but
I've heard.
Back then they didn't say something, but I told him, I said, you know, it's only 22 miles an hour faster.
It's a big 22 miles an hour.
Yeah,
though.
but you know, when you're going those speeds, it goes by so quick. And that's what happened to me, that I didn't have time to even step on the throttle, and I was already at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
so you think you can get on the throttle a little quicker and get there.
Yeah.
I like it.
But you know, the car's got to settle. But that car settles down, and that's what I told Donnie. I mean, it moves around like roadsters do. But when it gets down to about 270, that car just
hunkers down.
All the downforce is coming from under the car, and it just pulls it down. As we went to the fellow that had the wind tunnel.
The dynamic. In Utah, the wind tunnel.
Yeah. He called me. He says, you know, I'd really like to get your car in there. I said, oh, I can't afford to do what you want. He said, oh no, I'll take care of you. I said,
oh, cool.
Okay. So, you know, because he wanted to publicize the fact that he had that car in there, and Berkman was there, and they run the smoke test and did all the stuff, and he found out that you know, we tried all kinds of different configurations off the front of the car, you know, because the roadster, you can't do anything. And I mean, I would have bet my life that the downforce was coming from the back of the car.
From the top?
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Not one iota. You know, so, and, you know, we made a template to kind of cover up the mags. Well, they said, well, you cover up those mags, you can probably get to 2 or 3 miles an hour. I said, no, MSD sponsors us.
Yeah.
They like seeing those mags out there. So well, we didn't want to cover. I said, if we need to, we can get more horsepower, you know. So. But the downforce at 310 miles an hour is the same downforce as it is lift. That car's neutral at those speeds.
Wow.
So, yeah. That
surprised you.
Yeah, it did. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But when you drive in the car, you can tell that. You know? So that's the thing that I got to make sure Donnie understands, that because when I drive it, when I go those speeds that I go, at the mile mark, I'm flat-footed. You know. Yeah. And I'm in high gear, and that's my point of knowing that I'm going to go over 300. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know it then. You're like, this is it. Right. So, and I've had some incidents out there. Oh, yeah. You had a fire incident. Yeah. Well, that was a freak deal, but it was all me. It was all my fault. So, don't want to do that again. No way. Well, they're getting ready to start the Corvette. Okay. And I've gotten a lot of your story. That was awesome. You did great. I appreciate you wanting me. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. The first man to go 300 in a roadster.
Thanks for listening to Land Speed Legends. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, keep up with the show on Facebook and Instagram under Land Speed Legends. Until next time.